Welcome back everyone. So in the last video, we have solved consecutive number, which was 33rd question in our SQL 50 series. And in this video, we are going to solve product price at a given date. So let's dive in. Okay, so we are given a products table which has product ID, new price and change date as columns, where product ID and change date, these two columns together makes up the primary key. And each row of this table indicate that the price of some product was changed to new price at some date. Okay, now we have to write a solution to find the prices of all products on this date. We have to assume that the price of all product before any change is 10. Okay, now we can return the result in any order. So let's see an example. So in this example, we have three products, product with an product ID of 1, 2 and 3. So for product with an ID of 1, we have three entries. Okay, so product 1 changed the price on 0 at 14, 15 and 16, and we have to find the price of a product on this date, that is 2019 0 at 16. So product 1 changed the price on 0 at 16 and the price was 35. Now we look for the product with an ID of 2. So product 2 changed price on 0 at 14 and 0 at 17. Since 0 at 17 is larger than 0 at 16, we will ignore this entry and we are left with only this entry. So the price of product 2 on the date 0 at 16 was 50. Okay. And now we are left with the product ID 3, and the price of product 3 changed on date 0 at 18, which is greater than 0 at 16. So the price of the product on 0 at 16 is 10. It is given in the question that we have to assume the price of all the product before any change is 10. Since the product price changed on 0 at 18, which means that the price of this product before 0 at 18 is 10 rupees. So the price of the product 3 is 10. Now, how should we approach this problem? So in your mind, it might come that first we will remove the entries where the change date is greater than 0 at 16. So let's see, we can remove this entry and we can remove this entry. So we are left with only these entries. Okay. So the first thing to notice is that we have removed the product with an ID of 3. That's okay. We can use some operators to give default value to these IDs. That's okay. But now the next thing is that we have to group these left or remaining entries by product ID. So there will be two groups. First group will be this and the second group will be group of this entry and these two entry. Okay, for this entry it is fine. We will select the price, new price. But for this group, since we have grouped this by product ID, we'll have to select the topmost date. And in this case, the topmost date is this. But how will you select the new price? Will you use minimum operator? Will you use maximum operator or what? So this solution will fail here. So let me explain you how we are going to approach the solutioning of this question. Okay, so we have three products, that is product within product ID of 1, 2 and 3. And for these three products, we have to find the price of the products. Okay, before the date 0, 8 and 16 or on this date. So what we will do is we'll calculate the unique products we have. So we have product 1, 2 and 3. And for each these product, we will select only those entries which have the product ID of 1 and the date is on or before 0 at 16. So for example, for the product 3, we will use the product table and use only those entries who have product ID of 1 and their change date is before what 0 at 16. So for the product ID of 1, we will select this entry first, this one entry and this entry. After selecting this entry, we will order these entries by change date in descending order. And by doing so, we will get this entry at the top and then we will use the limit operator to select only the topmost entry. And then we can get the details about it. That is product with an ID of 1 has a price of 35 on date 08/16. Then for the product 2, what we will select? We will select this entry, only valid entry. So for that entry, we will order that entry by like descending order in the change date. But since it's a single entry, it doesn't matter. So for that also, we will select for the product 2, the price was 50. Now for the product with an ID of 3, we will select nothing. So when we select by using product ID, we will get an empty table, and we will use an operator here. There is an operator X. We'll use that operator to select something, or if there is no such thing as something, then we'll select default value of n. So that's how we are going to solve this problem. Now let's write a query so that we can understand it better. Okay, so first we'll have to find all the distinct product IDs, that is select distinct product ID from products table. Now we have these product ID, and for each product ID we have to select the entries pertaining to that product ID. We'll select the topmost entry which is before or on 0816, and we'll use that detail. So for each, that is select something from this. Okay, and we'll name this table as P1. Okay, so we'll select something from, and that from table is P1. Okay, so now what should we select? Okay, so we have to select product ID, select new price from product. Let's give this table a name, that is P2. Where now this is the condition. We have all the products P1, P2 and P3 from P1 table. We selected these distinct product. Now for each product, what we will do is, now we are selecting these products from same table but with the name of P2, and we want to select only those product where P2 dot product ID is equal to P1 dot product ID. Now, for example, in the first case, it will be 1. So this query will select only this one, and this one. Okay. And now we have to filter these 3 entries further. And the filter condition is that P2 dot change date should be less than or equal to 2019 0816. Okay, so in these 3 entries, this will be valid entry, this will again be valid entry, and this is also a valid entry. So all the 3 entries are included. Now we will sort these 3 entries order by P2 dot change date in descending order, which means this entry will be at the top, then this entry, and then this entry. And now from these ordering, we'll select the topmost entry. That is, we'll limit the result set to only 1. So from these 3 entries, we'll select this entry, and from this entry, we'll select the new price. Okay. And since we have product ID from this table, we'll select product ID from P1 table. So that's selected. But let's say, for example, with the product ID of 2, since we have removed this entry in the where condition, that is this condition, we are only left with this entry. We'll do order by, we'll limit 1, so we'll get this entry only, and we'll select the price from this entry, and ID will come from the P1 table. Then for product ID 3, since we have removed this entry, there is no entry within a product ID of 3. So this select query here will return null or an empty table. So we'll have to use an operator, that is COALESCE. What it will do is, it will either take the result from this table, or it will take default value of 10. So let me explain you the query again. First, we have selected all the distinct product ID from the products table. And then for each product in the P1 table, we selected all the entries in the product table which have a product ID equal to P1. And then in all the selected entries, we remove the entries whose date are not equal to 0816 or below that. And after doing so, we'll order those entries by change date in descending order, so that the date close to 0816 comes at the top. And we will select only that top entry by using limit. And if there is an empty table written by this query, we'll use 10 instead. So we'll run the query to see if the test case is passed or not. So it throws an error. Okay, I got it. I think we have to enclose the query inside parentheses. Okay, and we have to select this column as price. Okay, so our test case has been passed. Now we'll try to submit this. Okay, so all the test case has been passed. Okay, so let me explain you this query once again. First, we selected all the product IDs, and for each product ID, we selected only those products where the product ID is equal to P1, which is the condition we have written here. We have selected only those products where the product ID is equal to P1 dot product ID, and then in those entries, we removed entries where the date is not less than or equal to 0 at 16, and we are left with either no entry or entries where the change date is equal to or less than 0 at 16. Okay, then we order those entries by change date in descending order, which means we have the topmost entry with the date equal to or closer to 0 at 16, and then we select that topmost entry. And if there is no entries returned by this select query, then we'll select default of 10. Okay, and we will rename the result of this COALESCE operator as price, and that's the solution.